What you need in the building? How's everybody doing? Gonna be real brief with you guys because I can't spend all day. So Top Rank, they had a little session with Andrew Ward and Timothy Bradley. I just watched it, and two other guys. I forgot what their names are. And from ESPN, and they were talking about the welterweight division, how it's shaping up, and they were trying to say that the best is not facing the best, and basically, it's saying that Errol Spence is not interested in facing Terrence Crawford at this point in time, because of course the majority of the welterweights are on the PBC side of things. Let's talk about it a little bit. I'm going to tell you what I think. Okay. Now, first and foremost, they're making it sound like Errol Spence doesn't want to face Terrence Crawford, right? Even though obviously they know that Errol Spence does want to face Terrence Crawford. But this is what I want to say to you fans out there. The talk about the best not facing the best, it's bullshit. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why it's bullshit. When Errol Spence faced Kell Brook was the best welterweight in the world. Was he not? That's the best facing the best. When Errol Spence faced Sean Porter was the WBC champion. And Terrence Crawford was the WBO champion. Which means Sean Porter was the best WBC welterweight out there. That's the best facing the best. That's how Errol Spence became unified twice. Terrence Crawford, on the other hand, has not faced the best. That's because he signed with Top Rank and he had a deal with ESPN. And therefore, his contracted deal with ESPN, this exclusive deal, I think, with ESPN Plus, I think it is, would be an impediment in him trying to make a fight with Errol Spence, because Errol Spence is not going to go across to ESPN to face Terrence Crawford when he has an also exclusive deal with Fox through the PBC. So all this chitter chatter, we all know that was going to be a tough deal to make, and Terrence Crawford's not turning the needle, right? He wasn't turning the needle. And people say, you listen to people, they always say, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Teofimo Lopez, when he was going to face Vasily Lomachenko, they tried to lowball him. And what did Teofimo Lopez say? Hey, there ain't going to be no damn fight if I don't get paid. So don't bullshit us. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So the first point that these set of gentlemen talked about, how they want to see the best face the best. Errol Spence did it twice. Terrence Crawford did it once. The best was the WBO champion, which at the time, even though he was the weakest champion of all the champions that we have had, was Jeff Horn. Okay? Who happened to beat Manny Pacquiao. But really, if Manny Pacquiao had beaten Jeff Horn, Pacquiao would have faced Terrence Bud Crawford. But maybe Pacquiao made a deal with Bob Arum. Bob Arum allowed Jeff Horn to beat Manny Pacquiao, that is to get the decision on him, by creating conditions so that Jeff Horn could have the best conditions to win, so he could feed Jeff Horn and Pacquiao's legacy to Terrence Crawford, his fighter. Maybe that's what went down. But anyway, Jeff Horn is not a world beater, okay? Everybody knows this, okay? He's been at 160. He hasn't challenged anybody at 160 that's worth talking about in the top 10. He faced Michael Zarafa, who beat him, actually stopped him, and then he came back and avenged his loss in a great fight. But Michael Zarafa is not a world beater, okay? Michael Zarafa lost to Kell Brook at 154, okay? Jeff Horn, as much as people try to make it a big deal about Jeff Horn, because he beat Manny Pacquiao, which he did, that's about it. That's the greatest light and luminance of Jeff Horn's career. He ain't done nothing else, okay? All right, but the guys at welterweight, when we talk about the Danny Garcias, which Terrence would be very excited to face these guys. Bob Arum has downplayed Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter. I remember when Bob Arum was bad-mouthing all these people, Keith Thurman, not Kell Brook. bad talking these guys while Terrence Crawford was growing as a fighter. If Terrence Crawford just came into the welterweight division and faced Aaron Spence would have beaten his ass. Okay, he'd have got an ass whooping. I don't care how competitive he was. Could get hit too much. But I'll say this: now he has grown into the division. I'll talk a little bit about Kell Brook later on tonight after seeing the weigh-in and how he and Terrence Crawford will match up. I always thought Kell Brook would be a good test for Terrence Crawford. And it could happen that this fight goes to decision, but I have to look at it more because Kell Brook, there's things are iffy about him. Everybody's pumping him up, but I'm going to pay attention to certain signs. And as of now, my verdict, without seeing the weigh-in, because I don't really have much information on either guy, is that I think Bud should be able to beat him. He should be able to beat him with the skill sets he has, but you never know because Kell Brook, I haven't seen him, so I can't really say how sharp he will be. I know his style. I know he's comprehensive. He's solid. But one of the things about Kell Brook is, once you start throwing punches to the inside and to his body, you could break him down a little bit because Kell Brook is such a big welterweight that's being able to manage those storms. But I think where you can do the best damage on Kell Brook is to his body, even though he protects his body pretty well. He has great time and great footwork. Very classy all-around fighter, and he's really good, but he don't work the body enough. And Kell Brook, I don't know what Kell Brook I'm gonna see, okay? But if Kell Brook works the body of Terrence Crawford, it's a completely different fight. Because I haven't seen many people work the body of Terrence Crawford. Now, Terrence Crawford is not easy to work his body either because Terrence Crawford, he protects his body. He has nice long arms and everything, so he can protect his body quite well too. But I still think that Terrence Crawford's going to beat Kell Brook. I don't know exactly how. I think I'm going with the favorite. I think he's acclimatized to welterweight very much. I looked at him sparring. I'm shadow boxing. Beautiful stuff. I was watching him. He's well balanced. Looks a lot better than I've ever seen him. And Kell Brook looked sharp when I saw him, doing his shadow boxing as well. So it's a tough call. My questions will be: can Kell Brook make the weight comfortably enough? When I see the pictures of him shredded, it's not a good sign. Because when you're not even seeing an ounce of body fat on a guy, it means he's shredded down to his skeleton. It's like only butt muscle and the rest of the body, And so he's lost a lot of weight. He's lean. He's lost a lot of weight just to get down to 142. He's much bigger. So Kell Brook's a much bigger guy, and he's going to go into that ring significantly bigger than Terrence Crawford. And that weight could play a factor in this fight if Kell Brook decides to tie up Terrence Crawford, if he decides to move him around the ring. You've seen Sean Porter, who came down from 168. He couldn't phase Kell Brook. So if Terrence Crawford, as strong as he is, if he can't phase Kell Brook, because Kell Brook comes in somewhere upwards of 160, 160, 165. If a Kell Brook comes in that way, 162, it's going to be a little bit tough on Terrence Crawford, So that's how I look at it. Because Kell's big and he's strong. He's physically very, very strong. And it seems as though he's very motivated for this fight. So those are interesting things. The question is, will Kell Brook actually gas in the later rounds, like 8, 9? Will he gas? What will Terrence Crawford do to ensure that happens? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. I don't know what kind of Kell Brook we're going to get because I haven't really. The only clips I've seen of him, he was very sharp, beautiful timing, beautiful footwork, same classic Kell Brook. Terrence Crawford looked very sharp as well. Kell Brook can switch hit, so if Terrence Crawford tries to switch hit on him, Kell can match him up. That's a unique skill that Kell has. I've seen him fight southpaws, going southpaw, so Kell can mix it up as well. Kell's a very skilled fighter. Of course, Junior Witter comes from that place. Prince Naseem Hamed, several switch hitters come from Dominic Ingle Gym. So that's just an extracurricular that Kell can do. The only thing is, Kell's actually a lot tighter with his shots. Sharper, more compact, and tighter with his shots. And, Terrence can't afford to loop a lot of big. He has to keep his punches tight. And Terrence is not really the tightest puncher. He kind of wing shots. He kind of loop shots. And that could work against Kell in terms of looping shots, certain looping shots that he can land on Kell, but um, Kell's very sharp and very tight with his shots, and he puts together combinations very rapidly for his timing. So that's another thing that Terrence is going to have to watch out for if he wants to win this fight. Because Kell, if we get a Kell Brook that faced a Sean Porter, if we get better than that or something like that, he's gonna lose. Terrence Crawford's gonna lose that fight. That's too much of a step up. That Kell Brook who's on point, you can't brawl a Kell Brook like that. And we've seen it against Sean Porter. You can't brawl against a guy like that. He's impenetrable. So if that Kell Brook shows up, Terrence is gonna lose. But if Kell Brook with wear and tear, veteran Kell Brook tying you up, that kind of thing. If Kell Brook comes in, lesser than that, Terrence Crawford's going to win, because Terrence Crawford's never faced anybody like Kell Brook. He's never, not in the pros or amateurs, nothing like that. Kell Brook's a totally different animal, and Terrence is going to get in that ring and he's going to have to figure him out. And he's going to have to use his attributes, especially his reach advantage. He's going to have a reach advantage on Kell Brook. He should use it. Kell Brook has ridiculous timing, and Terrence is going to learn that very quickly. Felix Diaz is not on the level of a Kell Brook. I listened to his coach trainer, BMAC, and he's talking about Bomac, and he's talking about Felix Diaz. Felix is a good little fighter, but he's not Kell Brook. There's no way, shape, or form. Like comparing Felix Diaz to Kell Brook is that no, homie. All right, Kell Brook's a totally different animal. So, I hope that, because Kell Brook's not ranked in the top 10. He's not, So if he has difficulty with Kell Brook in this fight, if he has a lot of difficulty with him, it'll say a lot about Kell, of course, depending on how Kell comes to the table. But it'll also speak about Terrence and why he might need a couple more fights before he faces an Errol Spence, because Errol works the body. Errol's clinical. Errol's sharp as fuck. Okay, Terrence is not as sharp as Errol. So there's a lot of things I know a lot of people talk about. Terrence, everybody's thinking that Terrence is going to be the guy. That Terrence needs to face a Sean Porter. Sean Porter proposed to face Terrence Crawford, and even to this day, Sean Porter is proposing to face Terrence Crawford. He should probably try to face a Sean Porter after, or Danny Garcia, because I'm telling you now, there's levels to this shit, and Terrence needs to be tested before he steps in there with Errol. Errol's not Errol's not on the level that people think he's on. Errol's a dog, and Errol's also, he can really, really box. And his pivot work. I always talk to people about pivot work. Okay? And a lot of people just don't understand. You can switch hit, you can do all that shit, but the pivot work. And the pivot work that Errol has is just a next level pivot work, because he can change levels while he's pivoting. All right? He gets caught with certain shots, and Sean Porter caught him with certain shots. But Sean Porter's is a hyperactive, hyper athletic, bob and weave, dip and slip, pull and combinationally counter and all kinds of shit that Sean Porter can do. That's why, I'm trying to get people to understand this is Terrence Crawford's first real step-up fight. Jeff Horn was, but Kell Brook is proven, tried, has faced the very best. So if Terrence Crawford is not on the level of an Errol Spence or a Triple G, for example, in a totally different weight class, if he's not on that level, everybody's talking about Kell Brook not being damaged goods. It depends. It depends on what Kell Brook comes out to the table with, that he's hydrated properly. Because if he's hydrated properly, he's not damaged goods. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Kell Brook is damaged goods, period. Okay? Now, people are talking about the fact that Errol Spence faced Kell Brook coming off of the Triple G loss, and that's why he broke the other eye orbital. Yeah, but he also worked Kell Brook's body going down the stretch. And this is my advice to Terrence Crawford. Try and get to Kell Brook's body. The question is, will Kell Brook allow him free shots to his body, as he's always done? Is he going to be that kind of Kell Brook? The other thing is, I don't expect Kell Brook to knock down Terrence Crawford. but it's possible. Terrence Crawford has been knocked down by Kavaliauskas, but then he got back up and he beat him up. But if he does get knocked down by Kell Brook, because Kell Brook packs a punch. Okay, he's a big welterweight. Okay, he's big. Now I'm not saying Terrence Crawford's not a big welterweight himself right now, but Kell packs a punch, and he's quality. He's quality. He's a quality boxer. So it's a good test. I was advocating for this fight since last year, but I guess Terrence wanted to wait and make sure that Kell was, looking good, and these were all the options. He was trying to get Pacquiao. So let the young guy do his thing. Well, he's not young anymore. 32 years old. Kell Brook's 34. So these are contemporaries. So let's see them rip at each other. Am I excited about this fight? Not so much. Like everybody else, other people are buzzing about it. I don't see it as a super fight or anything. I just see it as a fight to let us see where Terrence is at. Just like how with Devin Haney against Gamboa, we wanted to see where Devin Haney was at. So this fight will tell us where Terrence is at. And I'm not saying he's going to knock out Kell Brook. I can't say that yet. I have to look to see how Kell Brook makes weight. If Kell Brook makes weight and the next day he looks comfortable, he looks fine, and he looks strong, and we should probably know that by the time the fight comes and you see them entering the ring and they take off this stuff, we kind of get an idea of will Kell Brook fade later on because of the weight that he had to take off. So this is the question. Now, see that's what could take away from this fight. So we have to see, we have to watch and see how that pans out. But with respect to the welterweights, so what I want to say is that a lot of times in boxing or other sports, these guys say certain things which are inaccurate. And so the first thing is the best was facing the best. Just because you dub Terrence Crawford the best welterweight out there, and Errol Spence is, you assume Errol Spence is not the best welterweight out there because of what? I don't know. I mean, he is the best welterweight out there because he's the unified champion. So for him to say he's the big fish, that makes sense. But in addition to that, he's faced the best twice. Terrence Crawford's faced a best once, and that would be Jeff Horn. It really wasn't the best because Jeff Horn's the weakest champion in the welterweight division, and all those other welterweights would have beaten his ass. But it is what it is. Errol Spence has on his resume, he's got Kell Brook, Lamont Peterson, Mikey Garcia, and he also has Sean Porter. That is not any easy welterweight list at all. Okay, Bob Arum will make you think so, but that's not true. And then he's now facing Danny Garcia. That's another world champion he's going to be facing. So I mean, Bud is kind of out there in the cold. Hopefully he will be able to make negotiations to make that fight happen so that he can face Errol Spence. But he's not really looking forward to facing Errol Spence next. First, he has Kell Brook in front of him. Let's see how he does against him. And if he could get past Kell Brook, then the question is, who's he going to face next? Well, he's trying to get Manny Pacquiao so he could say he has two belts, from two legitimate champions, and try and get past Pacquiao, which is not a guarantee. And Terrence has a lot of respect for Pacquiao, but it's not a guarantee he gets past Pacquiao. You see, what I try to explain to people is you can't underestimate your opponent. Everybody's like, Kell Brook's damaged good. And you go in there thinking he's damaged goods. If you was Terrence Crawford, he'd roast you alive. You don't ever underestimate your opponent. And that's one thing that I appreciate about Terrence Crawford. Same thing with Pacquiao. Just because he's old, he's almost 42 years old, Terrence goes in there underestimating Pacquiao and get the Keith Thurman treatment. All right. Now, Terrence Crawford wants to face Keith Thurman, Pacquiao, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia. He wants to face all the guys. And I'm happy for him. I don't know why he signed with Top Rank. He should have just signed with PBC after his contract was over, go across to PBC, do his thing. He didn't do that, but he'd have definitely gotten the fights. But it is what it is. Let's talk about the other point that they made, which was that, Errol Spence, as of now, doesn't want to face Terrence Crawford. That's not true. He wants to face Terrence Crawford, but at this point in time, he is dealing with another PBC fighter. And Terrence Crawford is facing Kell Brook. Okay. After this, Terrence Crawford is trying to get a Pacquiao fight. Okay. And Errol Spence is looking to get a Pacquiao fight as well. But at the end of the day, you can't say that Terrence Crawford, that the best doesn't want to face the best. Sean Porter wanted to face Terrence Crawford. Okay, Sean Porter wasn't a world champion, but he's still a test. Kell Brook's not a world champion, right? And Terrence Crawford trying to make that fight with him. So why couldn't it have been Sean Porter? Why Sean Porter couldn't get that fight with Terrence Crawford? And Terrence Crawford needs those fights. That's what he doesn't understand. He needs those fights. He needs that baptism. Because Errol Spence brings the heat. If Errol Spence senses any level of weakness from Terrence Crawford, he's going to bring the heat on him. That's what Errol Spence is known for, walking down fighters. He can fight off the back foot. But if you can put the heat on you and you can put the pressure on you, he's going to put it. So if Terrence Crawford needs those kinds of fighters, he's getting one. It's not nowhere near the step up that he should have, which would have been a Sean Porter, which would have been a stiff test. I don't know if he would have survived Sean Porter, to be honest with you. He might have robbed Sean Porter, but Sean Porter brings the heat. Okay, he brings the heat. Okay, and Kell Brook is quality, no doubt about it. He's a quality boxer. Okay, got the power, the size, the boxing skills, pivot work. But is he beatable? He's beatable if you go to the body. I don't know what their game plan is this time around, and I don't know exactly what Kell Brook is going to do, and if he changed up any of his game, worked on his defense, etc. But Kell Brook's quality, okay? Even though he's not ranked as a top welterweight in the division, he's a quality fighter. So if Terrence Crawford gets past Kell Brook, even stops him, it'd be good. But again, Errol Spence, and Triple G had already stopped him. So all it would show is that, against a similar opponent that, say, Errol Spence or Triple G had, Terrence would have been able to succeed against that opponent. But if he struggles with that opponent, if it's anywhere near a close fight and he gets the nod, or he lost the fight, but unofficially, but officially gets the nod, then it would show us a lot about Kell Brook, don't get me wrong, but also that the test was pretty stiff. It was a stiff test that he had to face, and he's going to need another fight, a Sean Porter or Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman, to be able to ratify that he's ready to face Errol Spence. Because even Bob Arum said, Errol Spence would beat all those guys. Okay, so if he would beat all those guys, then what's Terrence doing? What's Terrence doing? Is Terrence serious about showing that he could do that too? I know styles make fights, but still. So that's the extra other thing, saying that Errol was not ready to face Terrence, but Terrence is not ready to face Errol. And Errol don't want to face Terrence, but Terrence don't want to face Errol as well. That's what people don't realize. And they're prepping him and they're getting him ready to face a guy like Errol Spence, to really try and make it a 50-50 fight. And that's going to be interesting because Errol's got a long reach just like Terrence. It's about the same height as Terrence, a little bit taller, I think. And Errol's long, strong, but yeah, he can collapse his arms and fight on the inside. Errol, as an inside fighter, is a much more clinical, precise inside fighter than Terrence Crawford is. As competitive Terrence Crawford is, like I said before, he's more elastic. Errol's more precise and well-schooled, and his balance is ridiculous. So, I mean, Terrence taking on quite a lot. He's taking on quite a lot by facing Errol. Errol's a beast. Okay, and coming off of this, I believe even though he's more slurred though when he's speaking, so I'm not too sure how the accident affected him, and we'll see come when he has to face Danny Garcia after this fight that Crawford's gonna have against Kell Brook. So we'll see. That's all I got for now, but I just wanted to talk about the welterweight division, that the fact that they're talking about it as if, as if any division for that matter, is guys just going in there and fighting each other just straight up. And nobody's doing that. Teofimo Lopez not looking to face Devin Haney. They're saying he's looking backwards if he faces Devin Haney. How's he looking backwards? Devin Haney's the WBC champion. So you can't tongue-in-cheek things. You can't say, oh, well, the welterweights got so much talent and everything, but then nobody's wanting to fight anybody. Listen, man. People are talking about fighting each other at lightweight, but actions speak louder than the words. Okay, Errol's told you what he was going to do, and he's doing it. You know, so what is Errol doing wrong? He ain't afraid to face Terrence Crawford. He's not afraid to face anybody. All right, I don't think Terrence Crawford is afraid to face Errol, but he hasn't been facing that level of competition Errol has been facing, and that's very important to remember when they do face each other. Okay, and inevitably, who wins? Just bear that in mind. Terrence, you can't be sitting on the shelf. You and all the sparring, and all that. You got to face challenges, and it's gonna be Terrence's step-up challenge. This is gonna be a step-up in his competition. He's faced nobody like Kell Brook in his entire career. Nobody. Okay, so let's see how he deals with a quality guy who understands boxing. Let's see if he can get some shots to the Kell Brook's body and break him down. We'll see what he can do against the Kell Brook. You know, because Kell Brook's going to test him. Kell Brook is going to push him. I can guarantee you that. For how long, I don't know. But he's going to push him. He's going to test him. And we'll see, you know, what Terrence can do, you know, how he's going to try and adapt and adjust. And we'll see what Kell Brook can do to adapt and adjust as well. Kell Brook's pretty aggressive, too, as a fighter. So we'll see. That's all I got. I'm what you need. I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace.